Data matching part 2. Okay, in this final video we're going to go through another form of data matching. In the previous example we showed how to aggregate the quarterlies up to match the monthlies, or excuse me, to match the monthlies up against the quarterlies in terms of domestic shipment versus end use information. Now we're going to do another example where we actually look at imports of steel mill products. And we're going to take a look at a nice new level of granularity that we're including in this cube, where we can take a look at the district of entry and the district of unlading. So it's not necessarily true that the district of entry or the district of unlading is actually going to match the district of entry. In fact, the district of entry can be very far away from the district of unlading. So let's work through an example of that. I'm going to create, again in our little example workbook, a brand new pivot table on a new tab, completely empty. Let's open up the steel cube here on the left. Okay, and we're going to start pulling in import steel mill product information. So let's open up imports here. Go down here, let's use imports tons. I'm going to add that to our table. Okay, I'm going to grab some specific time here, so let me open up the date table, add a little filter here of which date in particular I want to use. So I'll unclick these and let's just grab a couple years. Then I'll grab this hierarchy, the date hierarchy, which we covered in the previous video. Add that to the rows. Okay, and now we're going to perform what I think is an interesting exercise, examine the way that the district of entry doesn't necessarily always match the district of unlading. So let's open up these district entry and district unlading information tables. And we'll start by expanding out these dates to a more granular level. So I'm going to use the menu here in the pivot table and use the detail setting choice to allow me to expand every single level. By clicking that option there, this allows me to hit expand members as many times as I want. So next to year, I'm using this menu to expand that out to the quarterlies. Then I'm moving to the monthlies. And now I'm going to perform the exercise here, the data matching exercise. Let's start by putting the district of entry so we can see where these imports are entering. So add district name entry to the rows. We'll zoom down to a specific example, this 1/1/2010. See what I did there is I clicked the underlined word, and that actually brings me into that particular spot on the table. So this underlined 1/1/2010, I can click on that and it brings me down into that level. If you want to return back, you can always use these back arrows that are next to the name that you just clicked. But I thought that the useful exercise here in this data matching exercise would be to also pull in the district of unlading. We'll add that to the rows as well. And now you can see here that it's not necessarily true that the district of entry is actually always going to match the district of unlading. So in this case, well, for Anchorage, it certainly is. Let's go to one of the larger areas. Let's zoom in here onto Houston. You can see how, the district of entry here, Houston, sure, the majority of that was Houston, but there were other areas of unlading related to that district of entry. So for example, Los Angeles had some of those volumes, New York had some of those volumes. And so this is a new level of granularity where we're pulling that into the cube, and purchasers of the AISI steel cube from Platts can now zoom in and get that level of granularity from the data set.